Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another live stream of the unboxing design system here from the Friends of Figma Portugal. I'm gonna start by already answering the last comment that says, "Hey, is this going to be in English only?" Yes, this is a. Although we are Portuguese, we tend to do these in English so that most people can understand. So, here you go. And yeah, so today the stream is gonna be 3 people again. We've been always rotating a little bit who's here for each episode, and this time we have, as always, Raquel. And today we have Beatriz that has just joined our team, and maybe present yourself, Beatriz, a little bit.
Sure. So I'm a systems designer at Bumble. Right now we're doing a lot of stuff with the design system, of course. We have a multi-brand design system, so we're kind of working around with tokens, the variables of Figma, which it's given has a little bit of headaches, but I guess we're going there little by little. Of course, there's a few things that we didn't did yet, but we hope to do in the future. So yeah, basically, we're trying to implement all of the releases that Figma did, and we're really excited to do more stuff with that. And I hope in the future we can actually deliver all of the things that we're doing to the community, and just so you are able to see what we've done, and maybe an unboxing of Bumble's design system. Who knows?
That could be interesting.
That could be fun.
I hope I don't participate in that one.
Let's hope.
Cool. Okay. So before we start digging in, I just dropped a question on the chat. We would love to know where you guys are watching us from. But first, time for some of the house cleaning moments, and let's just start with our regular promos. Letting everyone know that you guys should definitely join the list of attendees of Design FAO, our partner conference. It's happening on October. It's a really interesting conference. It has amazing speakers. We would love to meet you guys there. And drum rolls, please. And today I don't have music, so it's gonna be a little bit like. We have a conference. We have a conference. And from Friends of Figma Portugal, we're gonna have a small conference one day on September 25. And it's going to be actually a hybrid conference. We're going to have 2 locations, Porto and Lisbon, but we're also going to stream part of the content online so that everyone has access to the conference information. More news will be shared soon, but I'll try to get the link to the conference so that you guys can get it. But yeah, you can... Let me just also share the screen with the browser right now. We already have a website live. We're basically gonna open the doors for you guys to save the date, and we'll be opening a call for speakers up until August 14th for people who can join us in Porto or Lisbon. Community members will be waiting for you guys. Yeah, and that's it. And don't judge us, but the website will suffer updates because I was literally doing last-minute edits. So, on top of that, hi to everyone attending from India, Lisbon, Canada, and Porto, apparently, and Iran. So, we have people from all around the globe right now. Okay. And let's get to what we're actually talking about today, and that would be the Apple design files that I'm hoping that you guys have already started looking at. And on a side note, I love how the emojis on our chat right now are literally the text of the
I was
emojis.
just thinking about it while I were listening to you.
But these are really, really fun to watch. On the left, the emojis, and then on the right, hello cough.
Yeah.
Actually, for reference, for those who are not looking at the emojis, it just feels like a dab. So very, very, I don't know, Gen Z of us, I guess. But okay, so we're gonna talk about the Apple Human Interface Guidelines, mostly because now I'm gonna switch to Figma really fast. They shared their documents in Figma, and I don't know
Yay.
who has been playing with them. I have. I know that Raquel has for sure because she has been very much setting this up for us today. So big clap, round of applauses for Raquel because that
Yeah.
she's
Sadly,
always
I don't have the Vision OS to test the templates, but eventually you can imagine how it will look like. Next step for the
yeah.
next unboxing.
Actually, the I think the developer beta just opened this week, so even on that end, I think
Mm,
most people are still waiting. They just registered for the developer beta, so let's see how that goes.
yeah.
And basically, we're gonna be doing a little bit of what we do in all streams, which is we're gonna open these files, duplicate them, play around on them. But if you ever want to find this design system and others, you can add to designsystems.com. If my system is working, which is not, let me just change here.
Yeah. There you go.
Which is a design systems publication by Figma, where you can find a repository of probably, I don't know, is it dozens or is it already hundreds of design systems? I'm still, they keep
I
changing and
don't think
adding
there are
stuff.
hundreds, but
Yeah.
perhaps it's already depending how much they update. Because, for instance, I think Apple is still very recent, so it's still not here, but
Mm-hmm.
eventually I think it will be. So probably there's a lot of design systems that already starting to be at the Figma community, but they still haven't been spotted here. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
hopefully there will be hundreds, I think.
Yeah, and you can already see a bunch of them here. Airtable, Amazon, Amplify UI, ADS from Atlassian that we already looked at here,
Yeah.
Decathlon.
Mhm.
There's apparently a
Ah,
digital agency because if I'm not mistaken, you can
that's
also,
new.
yeah, you can
Yeah.
submit your own design systems, and this one might not
Yeah.
be available on the community anymore or something like that.
Interesting.
Finastra, Flamingo, GitHub, which is Primer, and then GitLab, which is Pajamas,
Yeah.
IBM, Goldman Sachs, Orbit. There's a bunch of them here. Material Design, which we already looked at, and Design, which is an amazing design system. A lot of design systems here for you guys to take a look at.
In case you have something in mind, you can also share a suggestion for the next unboxings, and we will have the pleasure to also to explore it. So feel free also to suggest what you would like to hear from us.
Exactly. So let's head here to the Apple website. Raquel, you have been looking at this a little bit longer. I think Beatriz has also done a better homework than me. So, what do you guys think we should be looking at first?
Yeah, so I would like just to give like a review of the homepage. I usually like to review
Mm-hmm.
homepages because I think really illustrates the goal of the with these big companies, like how they want to mirror themselves on the homepage and how it's the goal that they want to communicate. And I found it very interesting that the big banner is actually what it's new, especially because it seems very recent. So they just, I think they plan to have a lot of what's new updates. So, and if you basically eventually when you go back and then do a refresh, the banner actually changed color, which I found it was interesting. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a very little thing, but I found it funny. Yeah.
And it's only
Yeah.
blue and red.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
oh,
no,
oh,
I
oh.
think I also
It's
I
also
also
yellow, I
saw
believe.
yellow. Yeah, the yellow one.
Pink and
No.
all that.
I need.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
I need to catch them all. So
Yeah,
orange,
yeah. I did the same.
green,
So don't
blue,
worry.
red. Oh, I can.
Yeah,
I can. Yellow. Yes. Okay. Sorry.
yellow.
It's
Yeah,
just
no worries.
it's just my favorite
And then
color.
yeah, I love it as well. Mustard yellow, especially. Then I found it interesting, like the main goals that they pointed out, and it's basically the structure that they use in Apple products. I think that you have
Mm-hmm.
like the tab, and then you have the top corner at the right with the main sections, and
Yeah.
it's what's new, guidelines and resources. I found it interesting that they have like awards, and that one, Apple's Design Awards, and I found it
Yeah.
interesting that strategy of promoting their products with awards because I don't think that Android does that, for instance, and I found it interesting. Like, let's engage more and create more culture with design and give awards
Yeah,
to applications and games.
and
And it was interesting.
it's always interesting to see the people who win those awards and like how
Yeah,
this
yeah,
also affects the way that these apps eventually get out into the world, because Apple doesn't give awards in design and doesn't support these communities based on like how big an app is. It literally is how
yeah,
well
yeah.
designed it is, how well it works. And some of the award winners from this year, for example, are very indie and not as well known. Any Distance, like I know
Yeah.
this app because people were using it on Blue Sky and they were sharing
Mm,
it, but it wasn't that well known. And then all of a sudden they got a
yeah,
boom in users. So it's also a very interesting thing.
Yeah, I must
yeah.
say that there's a few of them that are actually known. I remember Bumble actually won one in
Hmm.
like 2 years ago.
Ah,
Um,
good.
so of that,
Yeah.
I must say, I mean, it's an amazing platform and app to get to know people. But it is true that design system, it's not the best. So of course, this is not a design system awards. It's a design awards.
Hmm.
But I do feel that sometimes the design systems are also important on the way you design and
Yeah.
how to get this awards, because like we can see a lot of apps that are beautiful and are consistent, but
Hmm.
maybe behind that it's not that well
Mm,
done. It's just things that you find pretty,
mm.
but then you don't use, for example, the 8 pixels grid, which for me that's like you have to. But oh well, it depends, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of it is not just like the way that the system is needed for the UI is needed or anything like. And a lot of these apps are very different. Games are done in a way. Others,
yeah,
a lot of them
yeah,
also don't use Apple design principles. They kind of just have their own design principles and things like that. And and
yeah, yeah.
and some of them are very interesting. I could do a whole episode of this just on Universe, because I've been using Universe for years, and just the fact that you can build websites directly on your phone,
Yeah,
Universe, Play, and a few other apps that are like getting into this world of creativity that works directly on your smartphone. It's really cool. But yeah, and
yeah,
design awards are always interesting when you look at
yeah,
the Apple Design Awards. Then we have the
yeah.
resources.
Yeah, the resources I found it very interesting because I think from the design systems that we've been analyzing so far,
Hmm.
seems the most complete regarding templates, like
Hmm.
the most ready to use screens, which I think it's a very good sign of maturity. When you have so much consistency that you can eventually share templates and you feel like, okay, people can use it and it's ready to use. Maybe, for instance, other realities as we are seeing it in awards that apply some marketing and then some brand inside. Maybe it could be interesting how they eventually use this template, because from what I saw, seems like the regular iOS user or Mac OS user. So I was just wondering to whom these templates might be, in case you want to personalize something or
Yeah.
just put a little bit of branding. That could be interesting.
I
Yeah.
must say that I think I'm gonna be the backup here and say
Yeah,
like,
no
hey,
problem.
honestly, I'm not
No
the
problem.
best fan at the human interface guidelines. I
Hmm.
think there's like a lot of more design systems that are much better than this one. I mean, of course, we're going to dive into that in this episode. But I do feel resources with the templates, at least, they're very good. But there's like a lack of foundations. Where do they come from? How can we see them? What did they use on the templates and how they structure everything? Because I feel like templates is the thing that you see as a user, but not the entrails. Like the foundation is the components, like the small components or atoms or whatever you want to use it. Um, so I think that's something that Apple actually lacks, which at least for me makes no sense. Because the design system basically, like the foundations are the pillars of our design system. So why can't we see them? Maybe it's because of some Apple's big company thing. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah,
But I would love to see that, honestly.
yeah.
And
Maybe on
yeah,
the demo part, we can go dig in and try to inspect and see the sources until we get to the atom design instead of
yeah,
the files, and maybe we
if
can
they're
dig in
public,
about it.
if they're
Yeah,
public, because they might not be. That's why I do like a few design systems more than this one. Like for example, the Spectrum, which is the Adobe one.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's really really nice, and Decathlon, which released the Vitamin design system on Figma. That's also amazing.
Yeah. And honestly, I think your criticism is not bad or anything like, oh, I'm against the, like everyone else thinks like Apple is amazing. I think for years UX and UI designers have been critical of Apple's design system, mostly because during the Johnny Hive era, because if you look at it, you know that like they weren't the best before. They evolved a lot in the last few years, but they always have this edge on it's it's never like fully user centric. It's like innovation is like the core of what Apple does, so they test a lot of things. They break a lot of barriers there. But I think they became better post Johnny Hive era, because Johnny Hive was an amazing product designer in the sense of like industrial design, but then the same principles that were then being applied to the design, to the UX UI, were not as well scaled up. There are some details that are fun, like the way that they went above and beyond to create the Apple curve, right? Like the whole algorithm to make sure that the curving on the Apple objects and everything are very interesting. But in any case, it's one of those things where it's like it's about the craft, but many times it's not about the best experience, I guess.
And I also feel like, for example, they've been amazing at design, of course, because they have the resources for that.
Of course.
And they're also a company that it's old, or let's say that they've been here since the beginning. But I do feel like they could be doing more, for the design systems community or the design community itself. Because not a lot of the things that we see on the human interface guidelines actually are usable. They're just really nice UI things. Because they're beautiful, of course. They have a lot of designers, and like they are amazing at their job, but it's not like I don't feel that useful. The human interface guidelines. So that's why I'm a little bit of a, like, I don't usually like it. And actually, for example, one of the things that gets me crazy the most is that they don't have a design website. They have a developers one. So when you enter, you go into developers one. So it's not like another thing for design. It's everything. They give more power to developer, which I don't think that's good. Of course, development is what makes you use the app or whatever. But I feel like design should be on another platform or on another website. That's at least some of my points, which I'm not. As I said, I'm not very keen into Apple's design, but of course they're the best at what they do. I mean, they release a new frame or a new website, and everyone starts copying the things that they did. So they are referenced, but I don't feel like they're the best, honestly.
I think we create a lot of high standards for them, a lot of high expectations. So every time they're doing something new or changing, we kind of like, they do this like that. Why? Because we have that high expectation. Also, perhaps the way that the website is organized probably could be something like related to how the company sees the organization inside, and for them probably could be more suitable for design be inside of the development cycle. Perhaps, not sure. Yeah, just wanted to point there was a funny fact that they had a Photoshop also, like how long they are in the long way with assets.
And it's also the thing on that. I understand the need to have what is sometimes still are outdated types of files and specs. These platforms don't work for, although Apple devices are mostly like the new Apple devices and the new stuff, but their customers might not just use the latest technology and things like that. Like the company that I work for also has that type of worry. It was like, can these softwares work on, or can we help people design for these softwares on the whatever limitations they have? And companies like we're really, I'm gonna say, lucky to be able to be here and use Figma, for example, as our tool days today, because we are we're front runners. Like we're front runners in this. Like the world is still mostly designing in other tools, and then there's other people that just jump the phases of, okay, I used to use, I don't know, Photoshop and Illustrator, and I need new things, but I'm not gonna waste time, so I'm gonna jump into Canva directly or something like that, and not going through this type of tools. Right? Which is not a bad thing. Again, Canva is an amazing tool, but having this type of guidelines for older softwares or older frameworks makes sense under that context, right? Like we don't know how many people actually understand what design systems even are, and I can say that even on people that I studied with, it's really really hard on that end. It's like I probably half of the people that I studied with only learned what the design system was because me and a couple of other friends that worked in tech taught them like a year or two ago.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
That's also like design system is still a new thing in the market, even that doesn't seem like it. We are very geek set, I think.
Doesn't it happen to you that when your like family asks you like, what do you do? You're like, I really don't know what I do.
Just say designer and it's already a lot.
Exactly.
There you go. Okay, just giving you a couple of updates on the comments on the chat. So Adolfo says that he couldn't agree more with everything that Beatriz was saying. And Diogo added one thing. He says that one thing that Apple does better than anyone is enable developers to make native-like apps. Like so many developers can make apps that feel at home in iOS, Mac, and etc. Which I don't disagree. Like I do feel like the way that their system works is they are very much focused on making sure that people understand that app acts the same way as the rest of the system, and they push for that in their guidelines in the way that they talk about things. That and especially I'm gonna just come here and click on the Vision OS one because this, for example, just because this is the latest iteration on that, but I remember on WWDC when they were announcing it, and they started sharing the stuff about Vision Pro. They immediately, like some of the main sessions of the day outside of the keynote were literally people starting to tell you best practices on how to design and develop for the system, right? It's it's very interesting because you have videos with this, right? Like we can come here and like there's principles of spatial design, which by the way, and this is where again Apple is usually very smart at this, it's a great marketing tactic to not call it mixed media or augmented reality, right? It's like
they create already a concept.
They created
design,
their own they created their own name so that no one else can copy it. But the fact is like there's a bunch of companies already working in this space. But it's interesting how now they basically went and they created a good set of guidelines to help people start to create and develop for this. And actually this jumped into the WWDC, so I don't know if this I need to go back. There's like designing for spatial inputs, designing for spatial user interfaces. They have a bunch of small things, but if you look at the way that the system works, is there's designing for devices, but everything else, patterns, foundations, and everything is the same across their system, which many times I don't think it's as scalable on others for sure.
I was actually going to comment that I found it weird but interesting as well that they have the first organization for platforms and then they eventually focus on that platform. But then when I was digging with foundations and components, etc., I felt like, oh, this is for every platform, which I found it interesting if it was good or bad,
Agree. I also don't think if that's good or bad. I mean, they say what's the device that it's supported, so it might be some of them are, some of them are not. I don't know, maybe I just want to see special things for a MacBook or the Vision Pro or the smartwatch, which sometimes, so for example, a MacBook and a smartwatch, they have such different resolution, and like the frame, it's so small that I don't feel like everything you actually do for one, you can do it for another one. So for me, that's a little bit weird the way they do it. Of course, for example, maybe accessibility, that of course needs to be the key thing of a design system. And it doesn't matter if it's a car, if it's an Apple Watch, or if it's a MacBook, you need to have accessibility. But of course, accessibility on a mobile phone or on a MacBook, it's totally different. So the sizes of the text is different, the minimum that you can actually have, or the way you perceive colors on a MacBook or on a phone because of like the sun or an Apple Watch or whatever you're doing at that time. So I do feel like sometimes, I mean, of course they're the best. That's undeniable. They have a lot of things. They have a lot of text. They have a lot of great things to look at. But I do feel like they should be a little bit more careful on the different platforms that they have. or be more maybe consistent with the things that they actually
even like a filter or something on each.
Yeah.
I don't know, like at glance, the best solution. Probably they do that for not consuming a lot of documentation for each platform. So because this is also for a public statement, I believe that probably they have more internal documents, for instance. And also, I found it interesting accessibility to be the top because they also launch a bunch of features regarding accessibility on the last year. So it's also, I think, a marketing position in there.
Yeah.
But maybe, for instance, with icons, it could make sense to have an overall pages because regardless if it's a watch or a MacBook or a Vision, you want the icons to be the same, for instance. So I get their difficulty of dividing by each platform, but at the same time having a common one. And that because you were exploring that filter on the right side, Bruno, does it filter information? Okay, for each one.
This thing here is not clickable, right? The supported platforms is not
Okay,
clickable.
but it says
okay, like it gives you whatever platforms you're supported in
okay.
these areas. So on app icons, what you get is like best practices overall, and then starts to go into details on iOS, iPadOS, macOS, which macOS basically has this guideline with a tall angle thing that is like, it feels a little bit too restrictive. I think
they're still studying the options, how they manage to do that.
Like, what happens if I want to design just for a smartwatch? I would need to see everything from every other platform, which I don't want. Like, imagine I'm a designer, Apple, that really focuses on watches. Like, why do I need to see everything for every single platform? It's not going to affect my job because I'm only working with one platform. So having that much content might distract you, and maybe you see watch OS and maybe you're on the iOS part and you don't even realize that. Maybe you're designing with things that are not correct. So that's why I do feel like they should have different pages for the different things that they have and be much more consistent with that.
But like that, I like the way they have it now. Maybe they are just exploring or even testing with us, for instance. But also maybe to educate you for the whole platform, so you can be like a guru on the topic, perhaps, because they are very devoted to the design culture. So perhaps when you're scrolling, you eventually also impact with the other platforms. And in case you subconsciously you think, okay, this is consistent like this. I have to design today for a watch OS, but maybe tomorrow I have to design for another one, and you already something in mind. But this is just a suspicion, of course, and it's not that efficient as you were mentioned.
The thing is, like, no one, at least for me, on my point of view, and from what I've heard, almost no one actually reads documentation. Honestly, So having so much text, it's just distraction. I mean, it is what it is, of course. I mean, I do love to see the documentation. I do love to write documentation, and I do love to see like all of the examples and everything. But do you actually read all of this page? You haven't. You just read the things that you want. So for me, also, as I was telling you before, having so much text, it distracts me, at least like a lot. There's just a lot of things that you can actually do with an example, with an image, which I do feel like it's lacking here. Like, there's a lot of text here on this page that Bruno is showing, but there's no example, real example. I mean, we're designers. What we do like to see is examples, like things with our eyes. We don't like to read, or at least I don't usually read documentation. I just see the examples and I'm like, okay, fine. This is what I need to do. So I think it's lacking a lot of stuff that might not be the most user-friendly for designers.
It has some examples, but I think here's the kicker about the way that they do their documentation. And this is something that I've lacked in mine stuff, but I've also seen lacking in others. Their way of setting up documentation is starting with platforms, as we've seen. Cool. Just talking about what it takes to design for each one of the systems. Interesting. Okay. Foundations, which most people do, but then they go to patterns first and then they go to components. a bunch
Yeah.
of the companies and a bunch of the people that we work with, they don't
Usually
have
those
the patterns
the way
area.
around.
It's like components, and components basically include patterns, and then you go through
Yeah.
either layouts or templates. Like there's no other thing. Like the technologies,
Yeah.
the inputs, the type of stuff that they have here do feel like an higher level of consideration, which then
Yeah.
might mean that like when you look at the UI, it's not as perfect, but if the pattern is the same,
Yeah.
maybe it is what you're looking for. I think that's a good
Yeah.
way of setting things up. Doesn't mean that it's perfect, but I actually like the way that they go through the logic of patterns first. And that's why
Yeah.
maybe there's
The
too much
narratives.
content,
Yeah.
right? Like the
Yeah.
content that you're looking for here tells you more about the details about patterns, but they can be overly descriptive on things like feedback, but they do have some things like videos and other related resources that might help. But yeah, like for example, the data one comes with an example because it's easy to talk about showing charts, but the moment about feedback,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's so many variables that I get like, for example, one thing is they would have probably to showcase a video or anything to represent how Figma uses haptic feedback, for example. I don't know if you guys noticed, but they introduced that, right? When you're using, if you have an M1, M2 MacBook or anything that has an haptic feedback on the trackpad, it is amazing to just click on things on Figma now, and every now and then you're dragging them, and you're literally dragging and feeling it going like, it feels like you're pushing your finger against the surface, and it's fun. Like, is it something that it's extremely necessary for us to do our job? And we know, no. I'm like most of my days, I'm just hand on mouse and not actually on the haptics. But I love the detail because the logic of like feedback is very interesting, and Apple thinks about it in a way that many times I don't feel like other companies think as much. But
Yeah.
again, it's the
Yeah.
resources at the end of the day, right? Like they have the
Yeah.
resources that many don't have.
Yeah. And I really give a big kudos to them that they have the luxury, like the power to create patterns, because I think that's the most utopic things when it comes to design system, when they are so mature that you can actually document a pattern. At least for me, it's like a huge accomplishment. Like, oh, I can patternize how people all around the company do a certain behavior. So, of course, there will be like the fathers of that matter. But yeah, I agreed a little bit with Bia. Maybe they can do a little bit, a mix of documentation, but also have more images and more videos for the more lazy ones. Maybe documentation could be good when you're talking to a more dev or management wise to justify why things are done in that way, like people that read more, let's say. So maybe they can do a mix, a bit of the both worlds, because for sure I think they will have examples.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also really like the way that they put it. So patterns came first. You have to understand what you want to design and how, and then you have the components to do it. For me, it's really
Yeah,
amazing that.
that's why I was basically just going down and trying to figure out where things were,
Yeah.
because like buttons usually is
Yeah.
like top
Mhm.
item.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like,
yeah. It's the
look
most
how
cliche,
low
right?
this
Like,
is.
oh
Look
my
how
God.
low this is. If you start opening these things
Yeah.
up, look how low
Yeah.
buttons are on the system. Which is like everyone on Figma starts by designing buttons and things like that. And again, it is like UI wise, it is fun to
Yeah.
start with this because it feels like very much of a primary add-on to a bunch of UIs. But at the end of the
Yeah.
day, everything else above feels more important if you think about it on the long term. And on that
Yeah.
end, I think that's a really interesting thing. By the way, Anna Hock said that she does agrees that this is hard to focus because of the way the information is aggregated. And I guess they are relying a lot on the use of their UI kit files, which we'll be looking in a second because we've been looking at this website for a while now. Caio Borges did ask us if we ever built a design system and what was the process and how what was our process and how to keep the product consistent to it.
I don't think we have time for it.
But I think, I don't know, I built a design system. I'm probably on the V3 or V4 of our design system. We're overhauling it again because we did the rebranding, so we're literally just starting back from scratch on a lot of things. So we're attacking our design system, for example, right now, not on just a system based level, but on a brand led level, where we're talking about brand system. So the design acts with the brand in mind, but user experience is always a layer on top. So it allows us to use a design system not just for UIs, but also for communication, for the way that we build our stuff on every level. So that's for us was the way that we managed to start getting consistency. It was like we created some pillars, including accessibility and usability pillars that are set on the top of our brand system, and then we're building from that now, which is, I think, interesting.
Yeah. I do feel like, for example, there's not a perfect design system, and like you always like to start with first a set of foundations, and then you do the components, and then you do the documentation. But that's not the real thing. Like you just start with components because like you have the platform done. So you just take all the components you have, all of the buttons. Maybe you do an audit and see that, oh shit, there's like 50 different buttons. So I need to reduce them all to only 3. And that is when you start doing the foundations. At least that was my case. We had all of the components, we had all of the colors that we were using on the components, and then we were like, okay, we need to expand that palette, make it a little bit more fun or a little bigger, just so we are able to use more colors on it. So it's not always a perfect way of working with that. And now we're doing the tokens, which we would have done at the beginning of the design system, or when we had the components, for example, or when we had the foundations. The documentation is something that it's a little bit hard because like there's a lot of things, there's a lot of frames that you need to take a look at and put examples or ways to use that component. So I think keeping the product consistent, that's the most important part, and also the hardest one, because there's a lot of things. Like when you have a product already released, you'll see that you'll have a frame that has a button that it's, I don't know, maybe gray, and you don't have grays on your palette, and you're like, why is this happening? So as said, consistency is a little bit hard to have, but I guess when you have all of the design system, and when you're all of the money that you spend on the design system ends up getting you results, that's where you see that, okay, this is a product that it is consistent. We're using all the things that we want, and then it's just you need to rebrand or do new components or do a lot more stuff, basically.
Yeah, definitely. And
yeah, from my side, I can just recommend 1 or 2 quick advices. So as V was saying, I launched one in March, a new one. And what I would recommend to you, in case that's your scenario, to do design audits. So the products are released, so you can create consistent and mostly a realistic backlog for your components, not just do like, oh, I just download a UI kit and I'm ready to go. And then with the documentation, try to also document the real use cases. And then in case something shows up new, you add it to the documentation. And also try to create a structure that reflects the way your company is organized. It's also important. Of course, you can have inspiration on the internet, but just keep it in mind that the design system should also helps how the company should move forward. And yeah, basically that's the 2
and to be
Two
honest,
quick tips.
and this is also another conversation that we already had. Depending on what you end up creating, honestly, even the language can be very different from company to company, because many times people prefer like internal language, right? Like it's easier for us to communicate with internal language. When then we jump into these files as external facing people, like we're looking at trying to understand their culture, their way of working. And we see it like when 2 or 3 different files that we found before, right? We saw that we saw that these things are very different from company to company, and Apple is not going to be different in that way. But one last thing before we jump into the Figma files, because we really need to get there. By the way, just looking at the comments, Anna Rock thinks that Microsoft guidelines are much better to use. And then she also says that she thinks the hardest part to get on a design system is to agree on foundations and guidelines and base pillars. Of course it is. Of course it is. But that's also why usually it's easier to do that type of solutions when it's not a group decision, like too many people in the room. Like it can be a group decision, yes, but if you have the decision by committee on a design system, it's a great way to also start having a lot of issues. So great inputs from everyone, but make sure that the decisions are centralized into whatever people have to deal with or handle the documents.
For sure.
And then we also have Adolfo saying that Google isn't a good example of inconsistency. Almost perfect documentation, yet they are very inconsistent between apps and even within the same app. Let's not bring Gmail to the chat, please. The four blues, not again. Not again. One last thing on Apple's documentation, but I think this is actually one of the best things that they ever did, is the way that they handle sizes. Just because they don't use final pixel dimensions, they use a point system, which is great and not great, but I still feel like it's a better way to scale up things because they use baseline logic of resolutions, and this is a side-by-side. This happened well because it's a technology thing that they did. Like, they didn't add new pixels to the screen. They created a technology that duplicates or triplicates pixels. So their baseline resolution is always the same base of points, right? Like, so you design for an iPhone on half the resolution or three times or a third of the resolution, but since they are all based on the same point system, the dimensions kind of scale very well between screens because it's like the point system is based on the physical size of their screens, which is interesting, I think. While Androids are not the other end. A lot of companies, a lot of systems, they go by resolution. So like a 16-point font, we design with pixels. So we would be designing with, instead of a 16 pixel font, we would be designing with a 32 pixel font, and it creates weird stuff. And Apple on that is very consistent. It helps us as designers, at least, and developers too, to scale better because they multiply things. They do a very great work on that. Now Android has that too with the resolution things, but yeah, it's interesting. Okay. We really need to jump to Figma because we're already on 45 minutes of stream. So I'm just going to jump here to Figma. Marcelo is asking, why do we think that these huge companies have so many consistency problems, scattered teams, resources? You answered yourself, man. Like, that's exactly it. At least in my
UX
opinion.
maturity as well on the company. Like, maybe design is still a cliche. Like, what is UX? What is UI? And
maybe they do what some people in my company do, which is they come and like, where are the guys that do the drawings? Like,
that does the screens. Ugh.
Yeah,
such a cliche.
It's a type of stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do this as every other user would. If you want to find Apple documents in the community, you go to Figma, you look for the community tab that now is available here on the bottom, or if you click on your profile, there's also here the thing that says community profile, takes you to the community. And then you can search over here on the top or on the homepage of the community, search for Apple. You're going to get all the things, but usually the top elements are immediately from them because they also are some of the most duplicated documents. And because it needs to be said, I'm just going to drop this gentleman here.
Of course.
We need to thank Joey for being the guy that made all the Apple systems before Apple did it. So, bowing to the master. I don't know how this guy had the patience to do it, but he did an amazing job of bringing these systems to life. But yeah, let's look for Apple really fast.
Yeah. I didn't put the Mac OS in our unboxing file, but maybe we can just see the pages, the preview,
really
because
fast.
I don't think most of people actually do that before opening Figma.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So they have a couple of different files, but they never call it like design systems files or anything like that. They call it libraries and templates, which, again, culture. They also have documents like this for the creation of their icons, and if you look at these, usually these are a little bit different in the way that they talk about the icons because they are mostly focused on iOS and iPadOS, but they also include, for example, the iMessage app icons, okay, which is something that I don't think we've ever thought that much about it. But they exist.
That's weird.
Yeah.
And let's look at macOS Sonoma. We're not going to be looking at it today, but we can already look at how these components will be looking into the new macOS that is still not out, it's still in beta. Most of their files are built the same way. We have a get started page with documentation. They have a cool thing that I haven't seen on any other Figma files, which is when you want to open them, some of them you actually have to to accept. Let's see, this one doesn't, but I think iOS and some others, you have to accept the terms and conditions. Or I don't know if it's because I already accepted them that this doesn't show up, but FYI, if it shows a little terms and conditions page, now you know why. And then they have their components, very neatly organized. You can see the elements here. And it's always
already
when I'm
using
doing live
sections,
streams.
which is interesting.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it's always when I do live streams that my cat starts to meow.
Don't worry.
Yeah. We were missing cats on this live stream. All the little
one of them
components there.
already appeared here, so I have 3, so in case you see 3 cats differently, you're not crazy.
All files are in beta mode, very work in progress still. Yeah, of course, because they just moved into Figma, or at least they just started publishing into Figma. Because let's not forget, Apple has been designed in Sketch for a long time. Which, to be honest, it's still a great product, and it's native for the Apple ecosystem. So it makes sense in their way of working. It makes perfect sense for them to just do that. And today we're going to be looking into the iOS and iPadOS and VisionOS files and playing around with it, right?
Yeah. I found it interesting that at least it's on beta, but they shared, because I think, at least my perspective as a user with Apple, I only see things very polished or very finished. But in the design world, as we are seeing today, I think it's interesting that they show a little bit more progress. Like, okay, their website is still not 100% well done because they do a revamp. Their components are also with notes that we are beta, we're still working. So it's good that they share that to the world and not create that high expectation or high standard, that we also put them, and maybe we can humanize them as well,
That was also
So
one of the things that I found that it would be nice to have, for example, like a version history where you see like all of the changes design system has suffered, just because, of course, like 10 years ago or 5 years ago, they didn't have that much things. So just seeing the transition or the evolution of the design system would be amazing. And maybe we would be able to see, okay, wait, they have done a lot of stuff. Maybe we don't really acknowledge, but they have. So I think that would be also a thing to take a look at, because right now they're designing for, I don't know, iPhone 14 or iPhone 13, but like, what happens with the design system that we had for the iPhone 3 or the iPhone 4? I mean, that's a thing that I would love to see, and see like how it was done before, like on the dinosaurs age,
And
because they were pioneers, right?
Yeah, but I am gonna say one thing though. That also has a lot of weight from technology, in the sense that, yes, again, the same way that we were talking about the whole Photoshop thing, people were using a bunch of different tools before and migrating that information from one end to the other. I don't think we as humans are very good at it, right? We record and we have that's why we have files like PDFs and JPEGs, which are very portable and easy, and people kind of save those to make sure that they last longer. But probably you lost a lot of work in Fireworks and Photoshop files into Cardinal files and things that were left in the past, right? And it's not that we don't want to keep that history, it's just that we're very bad at digital spaces specifically to do the type of archiving that we did before digital spaces existed, right? The Wayback Machine is probably one of the best tools online, and even then, for you to save a website there, you need to actually go and do the job of giving the website to the page, to the system, so that it starts archiving it, which is not something that happens, and not many people do, and they can use web scrapers and things like that. But
hopefully they improve their change log. At the moment it's really recent, but I for sure think that in 1 year we will see a lot of progress on this file.
One thing that could be amazing, but this is more like, hey Figma, can you do this? It's like, use the native version history on these tools for the community files or things like that to actually have that type of record. We use it a lot internally, me and my team. When you have version history here, you can actually create a lot of documentation and stuff like that.
I also use it.
But everything that comes from the community, you really don't have that access to like versions and things like that. You can really do updates. the best you can do is you can come here and drop updates and do a change log in the file or here and put like version numbers and things like that.
Yeah.
But it isn't the perfect way to see how these files evolved and how actually we went through.
Yeah. Or even on the documentation. I mean, there could be a place where you just select the version. Like I know Decathlon on Zero Height, they have that. You can see like from 2 years ago or something like that. Even Spectrum, I think you can see like the old stuff, which would be really like see what designers are doing because they haven't changed much.
They actually have the what's new page. Maybe there in the future could be more involved. We didn't go dig in on that page, but they have a what's new page, and it was interesting. Maybe there we can see a little bit better that progress. Let's hope.
Okay, guys, we need to start designing. We can already see like the way that these things are organized. I feel like it's very nice. Using our sections to do this is like, it's a really cool thing. I'm gonna be honest, up until variables I didn't use sections for anything, so seeing it used now, it's just
I actually start to use section to put ready for dev.
There you go. No, I wasn't using, but I know that we have a bunch of like example components already here, like pre-built, which is cool.
Yeah, that's the thing, the magic of this file, I think, because even though that's not that different from the way they are organized in the libraries, at least here they have a little bit of minimalistic context, which was interesting.
And honest, and this is like pro tip for the juniors in the room. There's no juniors in the room, but maybe someone is gonna watch the recording. Use this on your prototypes. Immediately feels more natural, and people don't think it's weird because it feels like they're at home on their phones. Alerts and boxes and things that feel like the system is actually working. That type of stuff is very important.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I also found it funny, the link, very simple icon with the link to go to the documentation for the lazy
it opens
ones.
to the page. Okay, nice.
Yeah. It's just a very small thing, but I think it was interesting.
Now I'm gonna give you control. I'm just gonna follow you. Tell us what you want. What are some cool things also that you've seen in the document that we should be looking at?
Yeah, I can share like my 20 seconds thought when I saw this is like, this looks so pretty. Like, I don't know how they do it because the text is not, it's like, it's not Helvetica, but it's SE Pro. But I don't know, the way that they have the UI design here, it seems just so good. And I wonder why I don't have that feeling sometimes with my proposals, but I think it's the magic of iOS and Apple in general. That's the first 20 seconds that I got, like, because I was imagining like, oh, I'll go to Figma and I will have this feeling like things are not done, but I don't know how they do it. I feel this pixel perfect even here,
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. I also found it funny, the buttons, the colors, because in some themes, at least macOS, you can also personalize the colors. But I think this is a standard button for that. That's the dilemma that we are talking, like, to whom this button would be, right? Because we don't know for sure, like for each platform. You were saying something, sorry, Bia, get excited.
I was just gonna say that. I mean, these are amazing. Like, I love to see these files, like how they get to work. Like, you see everything developed like really nicely on your phone or on your MacBook or whatever. But then this is like the entrails.
I just turned on the outline mode to see how these files are clean or not. Just FYI.
And also the variants. If you dig in, Bruno, and start to switch, you'll get a lot of fun.
There you go. I'm gonna look into them.
But what I've seen is that, I mean, this is something that I use every single time. It's the auto layout, and they don't use that. Like, if you go to the atoms, for example, to the contact, this one, like, they just have frames and frames and frames. Of course they have them renamed, so this is amazing. Like, I almost never rename my frames. They're just like frame 1346 or whatever.
It's a very good practice to rename, but sometimes it's a pain in the ass. Let's
Yeah,
be
that's
honest.
true. But it looks weird not having auto layout, honestly. I don't really know why,
I know.
but it's
Probably because they were switching Sketch for here. Not
Exactly.
sure. Uh,
true.
I have my whole thing is like they are doing a great job of bringing these here, but of course they are struggling with the sketch migration, like everyone that we know that has to do a sketch migration.
yeah.
Okay, quick note. Anna Hawk is asking, one of the struggles that she has is currently finding the best way to connect Figma documentation with the guidelines page, if we do have any examples. I answered with the Figma native feature for documentation. I don't know if you guys use that, but like I tend to use it whenever we build the systems so that it's already in dev mode and everything. Outside of that, usually it's just creating widgets for documentation or like little boxes and arrows
Yeah.
like they did here.
Yeah.
There are a couple of Figma files on the community that already exist for that. Let me just look here, like
I think I didn't explore that much, but I think also Figma has now the possibility of doing specific documentation for each variant as well.
yeah,
So
so you can actually do documentation on different levels. For example, things like that. If you
yeah,
prefer more visual stuff, annotation kit add. Let me see if I can find it. There you go. These type of things, we use these type of things in our system, which is like little labels for GitHub, Google Drive. I don't know, Jira, things like that, or
yeah,
whatever we use as documentation tools. And we literally drop this with either comments or labels, just making it easier for everyone to find. It's fun
yeah,
to see like these guys did the basics. They just dropped the little arrows there where people can just click on them and go and see. But yeah, that's basically what we can do now, right? Like,
Mhm.
that's,
yeah.
oops,
They
I think it.
also made some upgrades on documentation inside
Mm-hmm.
that you have like you can put bold and italic and the link for documentation.
Yeah,
And once you're in assets and you do the over up front of the on the component, it will appear there. So maybe you can try and explore a little bit the documentation inside of the component. Um, and I didn't try it out, but I found it interesting. If you would like to explain specifically one variant and just add the documentation for the variant. So maybe that's
yeah.
something that you can dig in.
Also,
Um,
don't forget. I don't know. I don't think they did the prototyping things and stuff like that. But for example,
Probably not. Yeah.
yeah. But one thing that you can actually look at in dev mode now is the playground, which, for example,
Yeah.
for prototypes and things like that, if you do the documentation natively,
Yeah.
it's simpler to then actually see like not only the documentation written on the side, but also, for example, the behavior happening on the left, which is amazing. Like buttons, cards, things that you build as interactive components, they become live for the developers to look at. So if you want to build components, the dev mode now has a bunch of other things for documentation that makes it easier,
Yeah.
including basic things like the fact that they can use the RAM systems. I still need to understand. I don't remember where you can change the RAM value, but like
Yeah. I
it,
still haven't found it yet,
but it works for
but it's
mine.
somewhere.
Like mine is
Yeah.
working specific. Like mine is set to 16 pixels, and it's working. And all my system is like RAM is 16. Everything else is based on RAM.
Yeah.
Marvelous. So,
Yeah.
I know that it can be changed. By the way, it probably is something
Yeah.
somewhere under
Mhm.
here, preferences or something.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh,
we do use that, like the documentation inside Figma, but not all of the documentation. I just feel like that's useful to say what the component does, a few do's and don'ts, and that's it. Because like if you put all of the documentation that you see on Apple human interface guidelines, it's just
yeah.
massive.
Yeah. It will
Yeah.
be
So
overwhelming. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'd
Okay.
say only a few things, like the description of the component, because sometimes we don't really know what the name is, or we don't realize what component we're actually using. And then just maybe some do's and don'ts or some minimum max widths, something like that, I'd say, but not
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. At the moment, I use description just to do like a very simple statement. And I
Mhm.
also put keywords for asset
Yeah,
research. It's really useful for like, maybe I call it a switch, but you call it toggle. You
exactly.
put it the
Yeah.
keywords, and then eventually people
Okay.
find out anyway.
I'm gonna be
Mhm.
mean and just go like we don't have the time. So my question now is, since we have about less than 30 minutes to end this. What will we build?
I thought that maybe we shouldn't build anything specific today because if you see, they already have a lot of templates done. But maybe we can try to do a home screen, for instance,
And play
with
around.
auto layouts or something like that.
Okay.
And
Sure
and
thing.
try to dig in, for instance, the foundation atomic design, for instance, via and maybe
Yeah.
inspect or detach and understand how they manage to. Eventually, I think it will be very sketch logic. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's see. And also maybe we should explore, at least I would like to play around, the templates for Vision iOS because that's the reality that I don't think that much of us really know. So maybe we can just take a look at the components there, perhaps, and then eventually start with the templates of Vision iOS because
Vision
I think they're more.
Pro.
I really
Vision
like the
OS.
Vision iOS here because they can manage to pull the backgrounds, like the opacities here, by just putting like a background of the component, and so we can understand when they're not the amount of opacity, and I think it's really cool.
I'm just gonna try and see how they are doing the background. So they have a 96%.
Yeah, they have a lot of styles for what I see at glance, so it
Yeah,
was interesting to understand how they managed to work.
and it's very minimal and clean. Okay, so the tooltip, for example, I can see it up to the element of background blur, but the
Yeah,
button doesn't have a background blur. Interesting.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, we could look into creating a little example, for example, on Vision OS because it's a little bit different and more out of.
Yeah,
So we already
and I
have a couple
also
of
like this
stuff here, right?
border on the alert, for instance, like this gradient.
Ooh,
They,
yes.
yeah, they must have used it because I think strokes. I'm not sure you have that struggle, but sometimes backgrounds, shadows are used as strokes and vice versa. I don't know why. Sometimes on CSS, eventually they
Yeah.
propose that, but it's also really weird sometimes to do strokes and shadows, and because they touch on each one of them. Maybe Figma should dig in about that. But this stroke is very interesting. I didn't know how they did
It's
it.
it's a
Yeah, it's a
simple
gradient.
it's a
Yeah.
gradient stroke. It's a very simple thing. On one end, I'm gonna say that I don't know if it's me, but I played around with that type of stroke and like morphic thing a while now. It isn't new for me,
Yeah.
but it's mostly about like what you're trying to build with your system, right? Like we went so much
Yeah.
into minimalism that a lot of these things that give texture and dimension to the stuff that we build were lost. And now
Yeah.
with Vision OS, you're gonna see like glass morphism mixed with minimalism on a different level, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and they did a good job of talking about like the way that light influences the way that you're building and things like that, right? Because
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
go ahead and like we go to the templates page on Vision OS, right, and we have a little UI here. Let's say that this is our Figma template. So I'm just gonna, or
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it our Figma workshop.
Yeah.
Like the way that they use the simple background blur, they use a very ambient controlled image to be to just let's make this sure. Like they are using an example of what they would do in a very good lighting, I guess. But if you talk about, for example, let's say, can I? Let me see if I can do something. I'm gonna try and do
Yeah.
something stupid. I'm gonna take
Yeah.
a photo of my living room,
Yeah. No problem.
and I'm gonna try and send it here and replace that background with a photo of my living room really fast, and see like
Yeah.
how we feel like it reacts to the
Yeah.
changes
Yeah.
in
In
that.
case it's smart enough for that, right? I think they have a lot of potential to do a lot of variables. For instance, I noticed that the stroke is still not a style. That could be very interesting for them to explore. Ah, good.
I'm gonna
That's
follow you
interesting.
because I'm not looking at things.
They
So they
Yeah,
have a
I'm just,
light background.
yeah,
Yeah,
they do work. And what about a
they
gray
do
one?
work.
Maybe gray one doesn't work. We're just trying to catch here like the flaws of the
Yeah,
site. Like it
that's
might
why I
not
have
work.
fun here. Yeah.
No, it's just again, it's using a background blur, which is not a bad technique. It's simple enough so that you don't really have to worry too much about it. But at the same time, I feel like one of the things that they did with all their demos, which they always do, let's be honest, is they were very, very very, very controlled to the point with the way that those things work, right? So I don't know. It's I'm still very much interested in seeing how it will actually act in the real world. How people will see these
Yeah.
things, how they will navigate through how these products work and what they do.
I
Okay.
find it very interesting the color because for some reason I I was expecting that the glass would be an effect here
Hmm.
above, but it's also a color. I never seen it like that. It's probably a very specific gradient, and combining with the black ground blur, they do that effect.
Hmm.
So
So
it's interesting.
are we talking about the background blur or are we talking about the outline?
But both of them. So if you see the selection colors when you're selecting the window, you have a color which is called window strokes glass specular. I didn't, yeah, and also the window glass.
They
And
use
then they
luminosity. They
also
use
combine.
luminosity mixed on the
Ah,
colors. So
interesting. Yeah.
using the layer blend modes, you get that type of stuff, right? So
Yeah. And the blur is like 100%, like 100.
100
Interesting.
pixels.
Okay.
Am I
Yeah.
the only one that it's really bland with this stuff? Like, I've never thought about using like linear grading with opacity, with lining, with whatever to
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
do
yeah,
this.
yeah. That's why I'm a little bit fascinated because I never
Real
combined
world
that much
example.
well.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ah, good.
Bad
Seems
photo taken
bulletproof
with
it.
my bad photo taken with my phone. It works.
Yeah. But it's good, right? It's
Yeah.
bulletproof. I think they are very, even though that they might not be 100% Figma yet on the templates, at least the basic ones are bulletproof, I
Yeah.
think.
And then
That's good.
so buttons on the left and right and corners and things like that. I'm trying to understand like would these be elements of like closing or anything like that? Like
Yeah.
what
For
are these
instance,
for?
yeah, what are the possibilities, right? That's
Yeah.
And
because for now I only saw that video presentation, not sure if you know about it.
mhm.
It's really cool. It's really fascinating. Like I really want them, and then I see
Oh,
the price and think, no.
they actually use a very interesting thing for symbols, which is since they basically have their own
Ah, good.
library. It's a text-based symbol, so we can basically
Mhm.
put any emoji there, any
Ah,
symbol there. And Apple symbols are also part of the library, so like they
Yeah.
are assuming that you can use like text-based icons. Like,
cool.
ooh, interesting.
Ah, interesting.
How are
They're
they so
always
smart? I hate them.
interesting. And then regarding the components, we maybe might have there like an alert, I think,
I
with
created I
this.
created a component that says Oppenheimer tickets and it has like the atom. So I hope I don't hurt anyone's
Good.
susceptibilities here.
But at least it's funny because they don't use auto layout, but they are quite strong on the variance topic.
Mhm.
They are very organized, at
Mhm.
least.
Because they use the correct like the way that it's built, it's
Oh,
using the correct anchors in the way that it's
what?
built. They do use auto layout, but usually they don't use it in the same way that we would expect like the whole system to be auto layout. Like
Yeah.
there's some stuff that they felt that probably they felt like you needed to be I don't know it needed to be like stuck, and I don't know when they did
Ah,
this, but maybe they didn't use the auto layout fixed component, they used others. So
okay. Interesting.
so this is an action thing. So what would happen when you get something like that on screen? We maybe need. We're probably missing something like this. Like see.
Yeah, at least I'm just trying to use their components. Like I don't even know for what this is, probably for calls. Let me put it here.
Let's see.
But they are very strong
There's one right on
regarding,
top. So you get an alert. The world gets dark.
yeah.
And by the way, if you,
Local.
for
Ah,
those who are still with us in the chat, if you feel like we should create something here, tell us what you want us to play around with. We still have about 15 minutes, so we're literally not making any sense right now. So maybe if you feel like we could do something cool here, we can try. I know what I'm gonna do.
hmm.
I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go all meta. Give me a
Okay.
second.
But at least regarding variant wise, I think they are very good for the start, I think. Exception.
So we have Figma inside Figma, inside Vision OS, and I'm actually gonna try something. I don't know if you guys know this plugin, but there's this plugin called Angle Mockups. I think you need to start with a rectangle for it to actually work, but let me see. I'm gonna try put like Figma on the side of the screen, and I just need to do something like this. So
Amazing. For so far, I haven't seen any variant broken inside when I'm just like going around. So someone's just tried this and studied and tested this really hard, I think.
Yeah.
Or at least they probably are so consistent already in their sketch files that going here could be more easier. But it's interesting. At least variant ones, I think it's interesting. Like with the swap instance and so on. Good. That's the other components that they have.
Jesus Christ.
I think they also don't have that much features, to be honest, because it's still new for them. I also really like this time picker. At least it was cool. Because it's already their personality to have that kind of timers. At least sometimes the hours on the Android is a little bit ugly, and this one is a little bit more fancy.
So Figma,
oh, amazing!
Figma is floating inside the system, and we are inside Figma, and the shadow just looks creepy and weird.
Wow!
I don't know about you guys, but I actually when I'm using Apple systems, this thing is something that I didn't know up until very recently. So if you do Command Shift 5, you can actually take a screenshot of a window very clean, but it always comes with the shadow, and it's the shadow that I get. Like I'm pissed at, because the shadow creates that weird effect, and it just breaks the thing. So let me see if I can fix that really fast. Select this, angle mockups.
However, I really like the shadow, so yeah, it's a little bit ungrateful.
Mhm.
And you want to get rid of it.
No, I'm gonna take it out, but I'm gonna use native ones. Right? Like let's try and get the stuff that these guys use. Like for example, if they do have the little shine around, so we have window controls. Where is it that I can find the background? No. Window. Where is the stroke? I can probably apply the same stroke on the window with Figma. See how it looks.
Yeah, it's because it's not a style. It could be tricky. I think you have to manually, go for it.
We can also like do something like this, where the UI is like half baked, and then we do a little masking here, and
I mean, it is showing, but it's just like, wait, sorry.
No worries.
You see there, like on the
yeah,
corners?
but it needs to be put in, and like we're actually using things like this. I'm gonna do something there that probably is sacrilegious for Apple, which is I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna select this, and okay, now it feels more like Vision OS with people like having multiple windows.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I usually get bummed with this is like when people are trying to design for the systems and they use these very clean files, it's great, but like you're designing this, but this is going to be affected by your field of view, and you need to test out with other windows and things like that. And I feel like Apple didn't do a good job of creating examples like that. Like, what would happen if you have a few of these open at the same time?
Yeah, I think they're still doing baby steps on that matter. They also have here, regarding foundations, they have a little bit of colors and textiles. And also some safe areas, which is also a very funny topic. But the colors are very minimalistic.
Yeah, they are. Which makes me think, like, what happens if they need like a really light red? Like, I don't feel like it has that much potential while doing new components. I mean, I feel like this design system is very closed. You cannot do pretty much anything, or be creative, or I don't know, allow designers to actually do new things. So that's I don't know. I don't. I
Yeah.
mean, I do like designers in my company to actually do whatever they want, and then we can review that component and see if um, the colors they are using are the good ones or not. But here it feels much more strict.
Yeah. And
Which
probably
can be a
that's the
good thing.
goal, not to give that all the assets that they have
Mhm.
internally, because I suspect that internally they might have a lot more. So maybe this is just the main colors for the overall basic stuff. Like
Mhm.
if you want
So
to,
I'm not a wizard, but I'm managing to make the window work kind of like we made Figma for the Vision OS. I think we're starting to get there. I'm missing the background blur. Where's the background blur?
Mhm.
Let's see. There you go. Figma for the Vision OS. It's done. Thank me later. Um,
yay.
by the way, hello
Uh,
Ismael for joining us. As we are basically just ignoring. No, I'm just kidding. It's just me. They are doing the job. I just got lost at the time.
no, no problem. You're also entertainment.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing.
And
Like seeing
I'm
this.
also exploring the templates and see all the variants and try to
Mhm.
understand the colors.
Yeah.
I see there's a lot of styles that are not defined yet as the main library, which I think is a work in progress for them regarding the foundation topic that you were mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
Bia. But
Yeah.
overall, I think it's pretty good for a good start here in Figma. I found one with auto layout, so it depends on the situation. At least on templates, if you follow me, this one has already an auto layout.
Give me a second.
So
I need to look for you.
this one,
Ah,
for
there you go.
instance, this one is. So maybe it depends on the effort. Sometimes they probably just did it, others don't. Maybe they didn't have this one, so when they are creating, they already considered auto layout. And this is very interesting. Like even though that you change anything, they don't break, which is amazing. Yeah.
No, it's always fun to see how these things work. Like, and again, one of the things is they are
Oh
still
God.
they are still trying to
Ah,
uh,
amazing.
they are still trying to build a system for sure that if they are coming it.
Look
Uh,
at this one. It's insane. Ah,
Wow.
you know what that
yeah.
one reminded me of, right? I'm gonna try and open the video that I shared the other day on X. While I open X, I'll share the video with everyone. Really as soon as I have it,
Ah.
which was there's this guy Alex Widua. I'm butchering his name. That is actually using Figma's API to catch these components that are Vision OS, the ones that you were just playing with, and he is making this video. Let's see if I can zoom in. No, I can't. But like here you
It's
can
a
see
whole
him.
world on the templates.
He's
It's
just picking
insane.
up those components and like testing them out into
Ah,
the
yeah,
world.
that's a very good video. It's inspiration.
So if anyone here wants to create something like this, that it's easy to use and put it on the
It's
community, we would
insane.
thank you
Yeah,
because
that's
that way we
insane.
actually could be playing around and testing these things.
Yeah,
I don't know if we
it's
can
so
do it right
cool.
now. And I'm
It's
just
so
gonna go
cool.
back to Figma. But yeah,
Like
like
testing AI with AI.
yeah, it's almost like the same thing. So I don't know, like it's one of those things where I would love to see more examples of uh,
Oh,
but more easily available for us to build with. I was actually sharing that video, and I remember that, for example, not Figma, but there's this company I think called Bezel that has like a Figma like tool, but to design for these. Let me see if I can find them while you guys are playing around in the
this
fonts.
is so cool. I'm sorry, I'm just having fun just personalizing a homepage. I'm not sure for who is this is suitable, but you can even put a badge of the notification. It's insane.
Yeah.
And it's very quickly to change the icon and if you want the name or whatnot.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I'm just guessing again to whom these templates are. Is this
Yeah.
for us to entertain or if really someone will like use their application here and try to
Well,
show their bosses like, look, our application look like this here. perhaps, right? Not sure.
Yeah, if you think about it, I would say for
Yeah,
starters, you can't do that you just did. Like if you have a widget like that, all the apps will go up automatically. So not having the auto
it's
layout,
so
it's
cool.
already breaking things. Just
Yeah,
kidding. But in any case, like if you look at that, if you look at the way that these tools are here built, like how many of us, and I work in brands, so bear with me, but how many people have never like just picked one of these to put their little app icon when they created a new app or
yeah, that's the thing. This
right?
is at least you
And
don't spare any more
and
time
it's
on
not
it.
bad, for example, for the people that have widgets in their apps, right? That for them to build their
Yeah,
widgets and play with them and test them in the context of how they would be used.
yeah.
By the way, I'm gonna share a link on the chat, and I'm gonna share my screen now because I found these guys the other day. Kind of feels like they are using the same tools as Figma in terms of like collaboration, but it's like
Ooh. Mhm.
designing for spatial canvas.
Ah, that's good.
So
That's
the
good.
moment that
That's
Apple
fun.
created Vision OS, these guys already had like everything ready for you to play around and design like this.
So cool.
So it's super interesting because it allows us to play with these things and design and test them out. Uh,
Yeah.
for example, this is actually a demo
Ah, so cute.
that we can kind of just
Yeah.
see,
Probably from our templates, huh? Perhaps.
and you
Mm.
can
Yeah.
basically see how this could work. I don't
It's
know
so
if,
cool.
It looks a lot like apples, actually, like the
Yeah,
linear
yeah,
gradients, the background blurs, and all of that.
but
yeah.
then
It's
it gives you
smart.
the thing that we're not being. Let me see if I can click here. The thing that we're not seeing with Figma, which is again what I was saying, like what I was trying to do with the even the Figma file thingy, just you're trying to showcase the way that like these things are gonna get a little bit of disruption, right? Like you're gonna see things that are arced because of the way that these windows open and things angle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey, it's clickable. That's why it was going away. Um,
Ah, okay.
and I don't know. I don't think I can like scroll in and anything, but like I can probably at least interact a little bit with it. But
Yeah.
it's fun to see. Like this is also gonna bring us into a new era of design in the way that we're thinking about spaces in the design. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that Apple will be the only one that's doing this. Of course, we talked about
Yeah.
this in the past.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of
Yeah.
age VR headsets and things like that. But yeah, guys, it's like
Yeah.
3 minutes to closing of the stream because we can't keep people here for so long. Sorry,
Yeah.
everyone. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. I know you guys love us. But yeah, I think we can probably call it a day because let's be honest. We've been here for a while. We played around with things. We managed to create. Where is it?
It's yeah, yeah,
There you go.
somewhere. Yeah.
We managed to create something. Doesn't mean that we created something amazing. And I even ignored
Yeah.
the whole thing and just played around with the mockup, which I
Yeah,
shouldn't
yeah.
have done it.
That's the whole
But
point.
in any case, like I think that what this tells us about the systems that Apple is putting out into the world is like it literally is the design system for them. It's like Marcelo was saying that he believes that what happens with these systems is they are an operative system, and that's why they are so closed and they don't allow us to do much with it. But in fact, it's
Mm.
like you can use these and then use visuals or color and you have your own app, which is what Apple has always done with their own like reality. Like the things that they build, they always push for people to do kind of that. Like so it's like if you need that first level app, maybe this will tell you how that app could work, or maybe
Yeah.
this will allow you to test how that app would feel into the Apple
Yeah.
Yeah.
ecosystem, right? So I feel like
Yeah.
that's more of the use case here. Uh,
Yeah. For
but yeah,
That
sure.
was actually what happened with Instagram. At first, Instagram was only an Apple device's platform. And
Yeah.
then years later, they released the app for Android.
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, of course, we're not talking about like design systems because maybe we didn't really talk about that at that time.
Yeah. Back then.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
you know,
but it is a
Yeah.
way
and it's not
that
just
Apple
that, right?
does.
Like it's the thing that ecosystem wise, and this was what was said before. Apple makes it very easy for people to build apps.
Yeah.
Their languages and everything, the investment that they have on things like Swift, which is a very simple programming language. Of course, that eventually creates an end result, which is being somewhat easy to build things like this, right? Like being somewhat easy to start and create things like their language and build something that comes out of that feels like that comes out of Apple's ecosystem. So their design system and their Figma files feel like they are doing the same for us, which is cool. Like, right? We can play
Yeah.
around and we
Mhm.
can create this idea and play around with the concepts of how we would build for the systems, or how we would migrate stuff like Figma, for example, into the systems and see how they work. And it's fun to do that. But again, it's almost like the same thing that we were talking about on the documentation on their website, right? If we look at the documentation on their website, the fact that they are so much focused on foundations and things like that, making sure that people understand that they are designing for specific goals with certain things underlying and with certain patterns that already work like Apple products, and people would not have difficulties with it. I feel like that this system sells you the same thing. Actually, I just did something. I hit Raquel for some reason, so sorry, Raquel.
Yeah, no worries.
This is what happens when your tablet is not running well. It's an iPad. But in any case, like, I feel like this works really well side by side because it uses the same logic. Like it makes you focus on patterns, on building fast, and then the personalization, the components, the things that we usually think about having fun are second level, and they come at the end of the road, and you can actually like then extend and build and change and do your systems. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Just like to add that maybe Figma, although that just launched new features, the next one could be prototype for special design. There's no pressure.
I'm gonna be fully honest. I don't think that should be a priority. Just saying, I don't think that it should be a priority. But
or maybe partner it up with someone, perhaps. That could
maybe there's a bunch of people doing things for the community.
I'd be happy if we had linear gradients and typography variables. I mean, I don't need anything else. So
let's see. Until the end of the year, variables is supposed to also have the typography and the image ones on variables. Gradients, I don't think I think that gradients need to be built with variables in the sense that they build the system, right? Like variables are single use tokens kind of thing. Like it's one value. So maybe a second level value thing, like where you have two tokens for the individual values, and then the gradient is a composite of two tokens. That might make sense. I don't know. We still need to see how that systems evolves. So
yeah. But we'll never be without a job.
It's always a work in progress. Like you manage to do that, and then on the backlog, new features on Figma. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, guys. Just to finish things up really fast, just reminding everyone. Don't forget to register for Design FAO. We have a 10% discount. You can come through friends.figma.com to get it. It's easy, and I'm gonna be honest, it's an amazing conference. It's an amazing lineup of speakers. You're not gonna regret it. I'm just gonna drop the link here, and my cat is getting really, really loud. So if you hear the cat on the background, I promise you I'm not torturing her. And again,
no, we get it.
Don't forget, we just launched our very own regional conference, Friends of Figma conference called Layers, that we're going to be doing here in Portugal. We're still setting it up a little bit. We're going to have news very soon. Expect news coming out every week. We have an open call for people who want to join the conference as speakers. So if you have something to say, we're here for you. Do not be afraid if you're a junior, a mid-level, a senior. If you think you have something that you would like to bring out into the world, we're here to hear it. We're here to give you a stage. We only have 4 slots with small talks, unfortunately, but 4 people from the community joining us on this event would be amazing. So if you want to, if you can, do it. And huge thank you to the people that are already partnering up with us, Ladies at UX, FQA Descomunal, and Iron Hack Lisbon or Iron Hack Portugal. They are already part of this. They will have a very important role into this. And Michelle, you would like to work as a volunteer in the conference? Amazing. We would love to have volunteers helping us out setting up. So if you guys want to join the Friends of Figma Slack, I think we have the link on the Instagram. I don't know if we have it on LinkedIn, but if you guys go to the Instagram, or if you're already on the Friends of Figma Portugal Slack, send us a message directly, drop it on the channel. We would love to have you guys at the conference as attendees or as volunteers if we have the need for. And I think that's it. I think we're done.
Yeah.
And I think we're already extended our stay here for a little while.
Just a little bit.
I'm going to give the cat for the goodbye.
Hello.
Peachy, say hi to people. She just barks. She just barks. She doesn't say hi.
It's because you
And
asked,
exactly.
Catholic.
And that's it. Thanks, everyone. Hope to see you all soon.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone.
Always a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye bye.